So, as a woman, like there are certain things that you maybe hesitancies, as a person of color, certain hesitancy. Like, how did you feel when you were entering these spaces? Again, the people you're pitching to are millionaires and billionaires. Like, how did you feel being in those spaces trying to ask for a whole bunch of money that most people feel like, why would you even try doing this?
Ooh, oh my gosh, that's a book, dude. It's a book that we should write, right? There's a process, and it's pretty consistent, and it's kind of like, first of all, having been the head of two organizations, what keeps you up at night, first and foremost, as a startup, is your payroll and making sure your people can get paid. The second is, you want to make sure you're meeting the needs of your previous investors, and you're on track for developing things. You're on track for growing your audience. You're on track for increasing the value of the company. So, all of the imposter syndrome stuff aside, all the stuff I just mentioned is first top of mind. You're like, oh my God, I got to wake up. You wake up in the morning, you're like, I got to raise $250,000 this quarter to make sure that my people are paid. It's
Mhm.
like, so that is your motivation. It's like, intrinsically, as a human being, someone jumped and left their job to work for you, and you need to make sure you're taking care of them and their family.
Yeah,
Hopefully every good CEO feels like that.
yeah,
Hopefully.
yeah.
I think most of them do. The second, once you get into those rooms, even someone who can adapt and assimilate, whatever you call it, like myself, you still feel a little bit of an outsider. And this is where the imposter syndrome comes in. I'll give you an example. Um, I was I met with an angel group down in, I won't name which one, but in Missouri. Um, Very lovely, warm, welcoming group. And I was there to raise $3 million for my own company. And they liked it. They loved it. And I was there presenting. It was myself, my CIO, another person. And the second I walked in the room, I just kind of felt a little bit of this weight, and it was like the people are looking at me, and maybe it was in my head, maybe not. But what I realized, and I wasn't able to kind of grasp this until I analyzed it after, every single person in that room was an older white male between probably the ages of 55 to 80.
Mhm.
Um, was that an outright issue that came up? Did someone say, "Hey, man, you don't belong here," or did something occur? No, 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 not at all. You start to think, "Am I good enough? Am I the kind? Do I check the boxes for what
Mhm.
they need, or is me being a little different?
Yeah,
Um, does that make a difference in their decision making?" And you kind of freak out a lot about that, a little bit internally.
yeah.
And so what's interesting is there are layers to the BIPOCs that walk into those rooms, right? Like, it's a different experience for every person. Not to say mine is worse or better than others, but the thing is, the experience happens, and you have to figure out a way to get through it. And so for me, just kind of my solution that day was like, I'm gonna check the boxes and make sure I, dot every I and cross every T. I'm prepared with every single financial scenario. I'm prepared with how I'm going to grow the audience. I'm going to overshare my ability and knowledge, and the ability of my team to execute.
Mhm. Mhm.
And so, like, if I do that, it's in God's hands at that point, right? Like,
Yeah,
they have
yeah.
everything they need, and they just need to make a decision. So that happens a lot, and it just takes some reps as well as some mentors to talk you out of it. That's really important, by the way. So
Well, I mean, look, you're getting into what we all have heard. The people who have to do, people from underrepresented communities having to do twice as much just to have a seat at the table. And so you're saying how I got to make sure every T is crossed, every I is dotted. I got to do the extra work. You know, one, obviously it's not fair, but you know,
you know,
is that is what it is? And also, what about your mental health and having to do this extra to make sure that you get a fair shake at the table?
Yeah, it's for execs at that level. Mine was a smaller company, right? There are execs out there managing $500 million, $1 billion, $10 billion, and like the mental health of CEOs is just like not great in general. There's always
Mhm.
challenges. Um, you know, y- an old mentor told me, you got to move on to the next. And so I wanted to make sure I was fit enough to do what I was doing, and fit enough to, be a human being around my friends and family, first of all, and not let that like cross into my personal life. But also I had to move on to the next thing. So I just had to figure out what are my tactics and strategies to say, all right, I did what I could. I can go to bed at night knowing that I tried. And if it didn't go well, what can I do? And my CIO, I'll tell you, my CIO is Zach Salopek. Shout out to him. He's a great friend. And he was with me through most of those presentations. And he would be like, hey, we need to do this for the next one. Make sure you stay under time on this. And hey, you did a really great job. A few tweaks, but ultimately, if we do that every time, we win. And so, like, having another person be a mirror for you, whether it's a BIPOC person or someone who can truly give you that feedback,
Mhm.
is so important for you to get better. Otherwise, you're just kind of telling yourself these stories, and it's
Oh,
hard to
wow.
move on to the next thing and get better.